validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
Look at that, I pushed the button and then did this. There it is. All right, how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Nate, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I see a lot of y'all just flooded in here. I really appreciate y'all coming in. And we're supposed to be talking about today what happens to the money that you stash away. So we're going to have this pretty in-depth topic. I want to make sure that I tell you guys to take the opportunity to like and subscribe to the channel and mash those reaction buttons because, as I tell you on a regular basis, we do not let the sun rise without going live. But we don't always start on time, and so we ask you guys to like, subscribe, and mash those reaction buttons, right? But we also expect for you to hit the notification button so that you know we go live on time. And then we also remind you to go and take a look at what's going on in the membership. I have actually spent the whole afternoon making sure that updates for the membership is happening on a regular basis. And then being weekend, I should be able to give you guys some of the numbers because we are following the values of the precious minerals. So you should be seeing that release probably scheduled for tomorrow at lunch. As we keep track of everything else that's going on. Now we have shows scheduled every night of the week. You should see if you've gone to the channel. You see the show through September right now, as we are in July. The majority of August is done and over with, and we are filling in all of the blanks in September. And as you see that, You have the ability to hit the notification button on all the shows of interest or just all of the shows, just so that you can make sure that you're here every day. And since we have different topics every night of the week, we do theme topics. So on Sundays, it's questions and comments from fans. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, business and politics. And Monday, we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make save and invest money. Tuesday, we talk about different countries. Tuesday, we talk about different ways to make save and invest money. So after we talk about how changes are occurring on Monday, whether they're geopolitical changes, trade changes, local changes, um, that impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Then you start talking about different ways under the current economy to actually make, save, and invest money, whether it's earning money online, starting up a side gig, automating something that you've already got going on, or taking money that you've earned on your W-2 job and putting it in places where your money makes money for you. We cover all of those aspects, different places to save money and invest money versus budgeting money. We've been doing some research as of late because different scenarios benefit different people because like if you're living on Social Security, SSI, you can't hold more than $2,000 anywhere, or they'll cut off your benefits. But if you have SSDI, you potentially put money away until you reach like 65 or 70 years old. So it depends on what kind of lifestyle you have and whether or not you're willing to limit yourself to the restrictions of the programs that you're involved in determines whether or not you're capable of transitioning into something that's a little bit more self-sustainable and potentially more lucrative. Um, these are the things that you have to figure out for your individual situation. And that's why we cover all of this stuff throughout the week. On Wednesdays, we give you guys different countries around the world that you can potentially invest in as well as live in more effectively. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, today being Saturday, we give you guys information about self-improvement, personal development, relationship topics, socialization, negotiations, building a brand, and then raises, promotions, retirement, forced retirement, and termination. We want to give you guys all of the reasons why and different ways to build your 20 or 30-year plan so that you guys actually can start thinking about for yourselves exactly where you want to be and how you're going to get there. And then recognizing that you cannot rely on this America path answer, which is the byproduct of the actual effort that it takes to get there. You have to look at what that byproduct is that you want, whether it's good health, financial stability, financial freedom, the ability to travel. Those are byproducts of what you got to do to get there. And then you have to really plan, how do I accomplish that, right? If you want to have the type of financial stability where you don't have to worry about where your money's coming from and all your bills are paid and extra money to travel and have fun with, you have to ask yourself, well, what kind of lifestyle do I need to have covered? And then how much fun do I plan on having? What kind of budget am I going to have for that particular lifestyle? And then reverse engineer that to an ultimate year over year plan, especially when you start considering inflation and when you start considering taxation on any long-term investment portfolio. You have to take all of this stuff into consideration, and that's when you start being able to find the finite numbers and the different investment strategies that benefit you. If you're second generation and you have a first generation that's still around that could potentially start this ball, special shout out to OG Kits, you can have life insurance policies. You can build revocable trust depending on the situation, where it starts with generation one, where you being generation two, you can start with generation one and start building everything under that person's remaining life, and then have yourself as the first successor. So like Steven, he's living with his father. He's got this thing going on with his dad. He can build his leg as long as he doesn't directly interfere with his father's retirement benefits. He can build a legacy under his father's name, and then utilize the revocable trust, even as the power of attorney over the situation. Utilize the revocable trust in a way where he's labeled as a successor beneficiary, his father's the beneficiary. He can start building things in a way where 5, 10, 15 years from now, his dad passes over and it turns into an irrevocable trust and third party takes over whatever he built in that timeline. Now he can start cashing out on that in a scenario where whatever he's got going on, houses, cars, everything that was written in the revocable trust, all paid for. Life insurance policy cashes out into the trust. The trust starts making money, make money for itself outside of taxable income because you work. it costs more money for a trust to pay taxes than an individual, but if you yourself are trying to deviate from having to deal with taxable income, if you do post-tax money from the trust, then the trust can actually pay taxes on the money and then send the money to you, and then you have non-tax or pre-tax money where they are, it's called post-tax money actually because it's already been taxed, so they're not going to tax you again. So when you get it, you're not going to have to worry about claiming this on your taxes because it is money that's already been taxed. They're not going to tax it twice just because you got it from an entity that paid taxes on it. So in that dynamic, you can set it up and you just have a guaranteed cash flow coming in and you can start building your life around that. You can still have your W-2 job. You can still have your own startup business situation. You can still be a sole proprietor of your situation. But if you built that first tier under the last generation, you have at least one self-sustainable trust that's giving you guaranteed money, even if it's not a lot, even if it's just $1,000 a month. But depending on how fast you can build this situation up, the fact is that if you have a base level of income coming in, you're never going to go undone. Now, for yourself, you can do one or two things. You can have that same irrevocable trust capable of taking on more guarantor information from the successor beneficiaries, where you continue to feed that trust, but you can also uh, uh, do an all stop with contributing to the trust when you decide to end up in a relationship with somebody, so that there no lawyer can say, well, um, your significant other contributed to the trust indirectly because whatever he or she pays for uh, prevented you from having to pay for it, which allowed for you to contribute to the trust. So in that scenario, it's like you put money into the trust until somebody else comes in and they say, all right, well, I'm only going to receive from this. Since that person never contributed to the trust, even if they find the trust, even if whatever prenup or whatever else that you got going on, that is the one directional payment option. They can't really say, oh, I'm going to break that open and take what's mine out of it because that's a source of income for the beneficiary and you didn't contribute to it at all. So, these are ways that you can set up stopgaps, but building the kind of lifestyle that you want to have requires you to decide one, how do you protect the money that you're building, and then two, which ways you're going to do it. If you're a young individual and you're not living on Social Security, disability, or anything like that, that'll prevent you from being successful with this. Creating a health savings account for your medical expenses. While you're healthy right now, you're not going to be at 70 and 80. You're going to have regular checkups, medication, you might going to need assisted mobility devices. If you're traveling, you're going to need international health insurance. And if your health is complicated, you're going to have some pretty decent coverage. And if you're building the money now for your health savings account in the future, you can find yourself in a situation where your money is making money for you, and then you can actually contribute to your health savings account, or not health savings account, but contribute to your health from your health savings account, where your portfolio is split two ways because you have your 401k and Roth IRAs that limits you like $7,500 worth of investment money. But if you're putting away $15,000 a year, you can put another $7,500 into your health savings account, right? And out of like 45, 50 grand a year, that's almost 20% of your income, which means that you could still build a portfolio in twofold where half of your money is going to cover your health and the other half of your money is going to cover your standard of living, where you would be able to live off of your health savings account year over year. And again, you can have that situation be a rollover into your trust where any assets that you don't use personally goes into the trust for your legacy. And then whatever kids and grandkids, whatever comes about, can assume whatever's going on with that particular situation. You can also, I just found out recently, you have like pool um, special assistance trusts, which are designed to unilaterally focus on healthcare. Well, if you build one and you got your health savings account and the health savings account goes into that trust, I would have to pull up some details to put it into the membership how that works. But if you have a trust document that says, well, everybody with a health issue is going to be is listed on this trust as a beneficiary, and this particular trust account will cover whoever's medical expenses as long as they're on this trust. Now you've got one trust for your medical bills and one trust for your estate. If you cover all of your bases, you're going to have probably quite a few trusts, but you're going to have a bunch of third parties that are assigned to making sure that you don't lose shit. Where the hardest part of your day is making a few phone calls and making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, and then or receiving a few phone calls and making sure that everybody's debriefing you on what they need to do so that you can make sure that your money's right, so that you can just keep living life with little or no stress, right? And that's one of the things that you've got to not only plan for, but put forth the steps into action to accomplish. Now, Trader says, what happens to the precious metals stackers regarding taxes? Do they pay taxes when they sell? Um, when it comes down to precious metals is a growth stock, unless you get an ETF on. Then it's still a growth stock, but you might find an ETF one that might be a dividend paying stock. But for the most part, they're growth stocks as both ETFs and actual gold itself. You can buy shares of somebody physically holding gold. You can buy actual gold itself and stack them, or you can buy some ETFs related to it where it's just putting uh, electronic transfer funds, which means that you're giving a third party capital towards the value of that particular share without actually owning the physical copy of the share. So in all scenarios, doesn't matter how it stacks, you are obligated to pay taxes on at least the sell of the product because you're looking at the difference between how much you paid when you bought it versus how much you paid when you sold it. When you buy and hold, a lot of growth stocks do not require, or the government doesn't require you to pay taxes on the increased monetary value of the shares that you hold. You typically have to pay taxes on the earned income from the dividends that are distributed from the stock price. So if you buy, say, $1,000 worth of gold and you hold it and it becomes valued at $10,000 worth of gold, if you sold it at $10,000 worth of gold, you would have a $9,000 profit. That's when you realize income or payment or capital gains. The realized capital gains is the tax income. Now, let's say you have $10,000 worth of gold and it depreciates in value to $5,000 worth of gold. You could potentially claim the loss of monetary value in stocks with your taxation, depending on what your CPAs tell you about it, and not have to pay as much taxes on the actual capital gains for realized taxation. Now, we also have recognized observation that if you buy and hold a stock and it is paying you dividends, the dividends that are being paid is earned income month over month. And that annually is going to be the amount of profit that you make for the year. And that is going to be added to whatever other income that you're making out of the year, which ultimately contributes to your ability to pay taxes on your earnings. Now, if you're the kind of individual that only makes money off of your brokerage account and nothing else, the amount of profit that you made off of your brokerage account is your taxable income level. So if you don't have a $50,000 job with $50,000 worth of assets being paid to you, which is a combined income of 100 grand, if you only have the $50,000 coming from the brokerage account, you only have a $50,000 income. And however you're taxed on that bracket level, that's how you would be taxed. But if you have 100 grand worth of gold and it's not paying you any money, and let's say that you leveraged it for $50,000 loan and you use that $50,000 loan to buy stuff. If you've got money somewhere coming in that would be considered taxable income of paying on a $50,000 loan, then that money is not going to be taxed money because you're paying back the debt. The value of the gold is on paper with certain value, but at no point in time do you realize a profit because you didn't sell it. And if you spent loan money, the loan money is borrowed money, so that's not a profit either. And if you get money from putting in work to pay back the loan, that's returning what you borrowed. So that's not considered a profit. And that's why they call it a tax bill. It says, is this the same deal with people who collect coins made of precious metals? People who collect coins that are made of precious metals are doing exactly that. They're buying and holding the physical asset. You're not paying taxes on the stuff that's in your house. Now, if you sell the stuff that's in your house for profit, then you're supposed to allegedly claim the profits that you made off of selling the stuff in your house. So really, if you wanted to get down to the finite versions of that, is that if you were to have a garage sale and the money you made off of the garage sale is profits from assets sold in the house, technically that's an earned income. The average person doesn't claim that on their taxes. The average person doesn't even mention that money. That's hard up money. I had to sell my shit so that I could cover something that I didn't have enough money to cover, so that I could do something that I needed to do without having to borrow money from somebody else. Most people don't claim that money, but technically that would be an earned income. But let's say you have $100,000 worth of gold bricks in the safe in your basement. You got $100,000 of gold bricks in the safe in your basement. The safe, the bricks, the certificates of authenticity that are in the safe, it's just stuff until you sell it. So, are you supposed to pay taxes on the stuff in your house? No. Most states only have you pay for property taxes, and some states actually have you pay taxes on ownership or possession of your vehicle. And that's in addition to like registration fees that you have to pay for the plate. But nobody has to pay taxation of any kind for the stuff that is in your house. Now, when you start holding physical gold, silver, platinum, uranium in your house, some people like to put insurance on it in case it gets stolen. Well, depending on the insurance policy that you get and the storage facility that you have, the money that you pay to preserve your precious minerals and protect it from a theft turns into the loss of investment, because like it took from the 70s to 2026 for gold to go from $200 to $4,000. So almost 50 something years passes by, 60 something years pass by in order for you to get a $4 or $5,000 increase per troy ounce. Now, so let's say you have 1 ounce of gold, you put up $200 50 years ago or 60 years ago, and now it is worth $4,300 more. Well, if you're paying $50 a month for the insurance policy, and it's not going to be $50 a month, but let's say you were paying $50 a month, that would be $500 every 10 months, right? Which would be $5,000 every 100 months. Now, let's look at 100 months. There's 12 months in a year. So every 2 years is almost a quarter of 100. So you're looking at 8 years, 8.5 years, you would have spent $5,000 on the policy. Your value over the course of 50 years or 60 years would have been $4,300. Within the first 5 years, you would have spent more money than the growth of your possession of your gold. Now, what some people do is they'll buy it, hold it, not insure it, not do anything with it. They'll just have it, right? If they have the certificates of authenticity, they'll just have it. Now, you have it at your own risk. Somebody takes it, it's gone, right? But if you have it at your own risk, you're not paying any money to store it. You're not paying any money in case it gets stolen. You can actually take that gold and then go somewhere and then sell it. But when you sell it, the seller is going to sell it, or is going to buy it from you for less than what you than less than the value, because at the end of the day, they got to turn profit off of it too. So if it's worth $4,000 an ounce or $4,500 an ounce right now, they might give you $3,000 for it, maybe $3,500 if you show the authenticity certificate, where they're going to make $1,000 profit off of holding it, taking it from you. Then they're going to melt it down and turn it into jewelry and put it out there and sell it for shit tons of money, where they can turn that $3,500 gave you into 30 grand or more, right? But if you don't have a certificate of authenticity, they might only give you 70% of what the value is. So if it's valued at 4,500, they might only give you like 3,000, right? Or 2,800, something like that, which is not nearly as much as it's worth, right? So it holding on gold and silver, and then if you depending on how you hold it, because that's going to be another problem. Because a lot of people want to do that, Scarface, like Godfather style, big ass like 50-pound gold bricks or 5-pound gold bricks, and they think that, oh yeah, that's the shit, because it's showing wealth. The problem is that if you decide, let's say that something happens and we're in a post stabilized economy of some sort where credit cards don't function, digital transactions don't function, and the United States dollar, for some reason, wherever the fuck you are at the time this is going on, is worthless. In that dynamic, you are not going to be able to shave off a few ounces of gold off of your gold brick and trade it to the other person for whatever the fuck you need. You're actually going to have to give a gold brick to somebody for something. So if the gold brick is worth $10,000 and you want that car, you can't say, "Oh, well, I'll give you $1,000 for it." You've got a gold brick. They're going to take the whole brick for the car, and that's it. But if you have gold coins, though, if you have the little the blues, you might be able to trade one doubloon that might be worth like $1,000 for the car, or two doubloons for the car. So it kind of depends on like your logic behind how are you going to store your assets. But then you also have to think about for yourself. Well, fuck, if I had like $10,000 worth of coins, of golden coins, that's going to be chaotic and hard to transport, which means you're going to have to get some of those big ass Jason Bourne briefcases full of coins. It just, but I don't know the kind of lifestyle you're preparing for. But those are some good questions. And it's in line with today's topic about holding on to your money, stashing away your money different ways. Now, FX Trader says it's funny, but the increase in the price of gold is usually due to inflation. So you're forced to pay taxes on a profit that was created by the currency inflation. It's crazy. Well, the value of gold increases based on the volatility of the stock market because people believe that businesses are going to go under, and businesses have gone under. In 2018, you had businesses collapse. In 2000 and I want to say 16, I think we had some issues with some businesses staying afloat. And I know during the pandemic, we had a lot of businesses go under. So wealthy people moved their money from volatile stocks to gold. And that's why the gold goes up, not because of inflation. Inflation goes up because poor people spend more money on shit. And then when big businesses have to spend more money to get stuff, they charge more money for the stuff, and the consumers are willing to pay for it. As a result, the more that you're willing to pay for something, the more something's going to get charged. That's what's called the price point. So gold is not going up because of inflation. Gold is going up because more people are buying into gold because of the volatility of the stock market. Same thing with silver. Silver is going up because it's cheaper than gold, but silver is going up because of the volatility of the stock market. The entire market, the entire trade market is volatile right now due to the oil crisis. So that's going to be your biggest issue, right? So you're not being taxed on the profits from inflation. You're being taxed on the profits from you selling off your shares, and the selling off of your shares, the increase on your investment came from holding during volatile times when other people bought into something you already had, and then you sold high. So it's not directly related to inflation. Gold is not directly related to inflation. Gold is directly related to volatility. And volatility doesn't always contribute to inflation. Geopolitical conflict contributes to inflation. Trade route problems create inflation. Extreme quantities of excess capital in the lower class, in the bottom 50% of incomes, contributes to inflation because people who don't save money, who spend every dollar that they get, as soon as you hand them $500,000, they're going to spend it as quickly as possible. They're gonna find a way to make the least quantity of highly expensive transactions that they can to make sure that they live the best life that they can while they still can, and then they'll go back to being broke as well. He says in the past 2,000 years, a cow still costs the same number of ounces of gold, regardless of the inflation rate. Right. If you're buying it by the pound, it's still going to be the same price. But if you think about quote unquote inflation rates when you start talking about that cow, the cost of the cow has gone up because if a cow is worth 5 ounces of gold from 1970 and a cow is worth 5 ounces of gold in 2026, it's still 5 ounces. But gold was $200 an ounce back in the day, and gold is now $4,500 an ounce today. So a cow that was once worth 5 ounces, what was once worth $1,000, is now almost $25,000. So when you start talking about trade, bartering, gold is going to maintain its value because if they're willing to take 5 shillings of gold in 1976 and they're still willing to take that same 5 shillings of gold in 2026, it's still 5 shillings of gold. But the difference is that 5 shillings of gold is thousands of times more valuable today than what it was when back in the day. So, inflation, we're so like I said before, we're not being taxed on inflation. We're being taxed on the increase of value. And I know some people say, well, that's inflation. No, inflation is the cost of the item going up due to the immense purchase of something. You're holding it and its monetary value has increased because the demand for it has increased, but they're not really selling gold to anybody. They're just selling the value of gold to everybody, right? So it's you're being taxed on the difference between what you pay for versus what you get, and that's like the capital gains tax. He says Nixon tried to inflate the cow, but the ounces are the same. The ounces are the same, but the price is different. The ounces are the same, but the prices are different. Now, today we're supposed to be discussing the ability to stash your money away and how that could potentially benefit you and sometimes harm you. Imagine that you got this secret. Maybe it's a coffee can buried in the backyard, fireproof safe bolted in the closet floor, or just a series of envelopes tucked between the pages of an old Bible or book or something. Your own personal money bunker, your fortress of solitude, lined with cold, hard cash, right? Feels safe, doesn't it? In a world of digital threats, crashing markets, and unpredictable banks, that physical pile of bills can feel like the only real guarantees. It's your safety net, tangible testament to your hard work. And it's going to be your shield against any financial disasters the world can throw at you for the most part. It says, why is it so difficult to time the stock market? Well, that's a little bit different from today's topic, but I'll handle that question. I just realized my microphone wasn't as close as it should be. Okay. It is going to be difficult to time the stock market because the people who set the price, you don't know when they're going to work. That's why. If you know that you get paid on Wednesday and you know that the bank it opens up at 8 o'clock Wednesday morning, you know that by 8:05 your money should be visible on your bank account because you know when they're going to operate. A business doesn't calculate, or the third party that calculates the business's share price, you don't know when they're going to operate. You don't know when the share price is going to happen. And it's not always real time. It might seemingly happen in real time because someone got the news, they did their calculations, they started making adjustments. When they got the news, somebody in the media got the news, they're reporting the news. The people who had insider knowledge starts moving their money around. As the news is projecting, the stock market is changing. As the stock market is changing, you're finding out about it. And there are people right now who have like whole rooms in their house, in their penthouse suites, in their corner office with like 30 monitors on it that is watching the majority of stocks like a freaking heart monitor system. And even they can't always time the market. You can see little areas in the trends and micromanage those trends and buy high on a trend, sell low on another trend, buy high on another trend. Every fifth transaction might be a beneficial transaction for you, and you might make 30 transactions out of the day. As long as you made more positive sales than you made negative sales out of the day, you have a net positive for the day. That's how day traders operate. You yourself as an individual cannot time the entire stock market because you have to understand that whatever the president says impacts the stock market. How products get to the country impacts the stock market. How customers spend their money impacts the stock market. And how customers spend their money is going to be impacted by how customers go to work. So when the government shuts down, less people have money. And it's not even the government agents that have less money. It's the people who are serving the government agents that have less money. And then the consumers that was buying products from manufacturers where, take for example, let's just use for a simple coffee. Coffee near the fucking White House. Let's just use that for a second. Now, and let's just hit it. Starbucks coffee near the fucking White House. Okay. Now, Starbucks is a brand of coffee. Starbucks is not a government agency. But the Starbucks near the White House makes the majority of its money from the freaking FBI, CIA, and everybody else that works for the government. When a government tells 500,000 Americans take off until we figure out what we're going to do with the budget, you just lost 500,000 customers. So now Starbucks takes a dip. Now, the people that Starbucks buy their coffee beans from, it's not going to get paid as much. The people who Starbucks buys their cups from, is not going to get paid much. The people who Starbucks buys their straws from, it's not going to get paid much. Wait, it gets worse. The people who the cleaning supplies, the electric bill, the water bill, all of the other utilities that otherwise would be coming from these establishments are not coming in, and each one of those companies is going to be a byproduct of the initial government shutdown. So you can't time the market because if you were banking on Coca-Cola, Starbucks isn't making sales because the government stopped working. But guess what? Neither is McDonald's. So Coca-Cola's not making no money neither. So you come to find out that indirectly the stock that you was playing into is hurting because of some shit that's happening somewhere else. Take, for example, the real estate investment trust that I was telling you guys about to buy into. I just found 2 or 3 other ones that we have in our list. The share value went down, which is a benefit for us because we're buying and holding for the growth. Now I have 5 or 6 real estate investment trusts that are operating above 22% return on investment. And why is that happening? Because we went back to war. We're taking more troops and sending them out there to the battlefield, which means there's less people paying rent, which means the real estate investment trusts are going to be hurting. And that is a secondary byproduct to the other thing where big business is no longer able to buy more than 305 or 350 houses in all of the single family homes have to be put up for sale. So if they've got 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 houses in their portfolio, they got to sell that shit and reduce it down to the maximum limit that they're supposed to have, and then turn over most of that stuff into rental properties, right? Which means that while they're restructuring, their share value goes down, which means the rest of us can buy into that shit. But we couldn't time when that shit was going to happen. We just knew when I told you guys that this was going on, what, a week or two ago? And then shortly after that, a couple days after that, boom, the market changes. It didn't change the day that I said it. It changed a few days later. And that's why I tell you guys, you're not supposed to be trying to time the market. What you're supposed to be doing is buying and holding. And when you see a market shift that's beneficial to you, buy into it. Is the media complicit in manipulating the short-term market prices? I'm not going to contribute towards the conspiracy theories. I can tell you that with social media out there, there's a lot of entities that can produce fake news, and any news, whether it is deliberately intended to modify the market or just a circumstance of informing the public, because First Amendment right to freedom of speech is coupled with the right to know what the fuck's going on. So anything that's happening, anything newsworthy, it is our entitlement to know that stuff is happening in our country, in our cities and states. If internationally, if our sons and daughters and parents are overseas involved in conflict, it is our right to know that they're okay. So it is our right to know what conflict that they're in. We might not be allowed to know the military strategies that they're doing, but if we know that our troops are in Iran, we need to know how that is going. So if that news ultimately makes gas go up to $7.50 an ounce, I mean a gallon, then shit, it's going to go up to $7.50 a gallon because we have the right to know, right? Self entitlement. So I'm not going to say that media is complicit, because complicit implies that they're deliberately involved in a conspiracy level to manipulate the market and cause a disarray. No, the media doesn't have to do that. Consumer spending can manipulate the market. The reason why, like, all it takes is for somebody to use the N word. Target loses a bunch of money. Calvin Klein lost a bunch of money. Nike lost a bunch of money. You know, it doesn't really take the media to manipulate the market, but the average everyday news that's been happening since January of 2025, and actually I'm going to go as far back as saying November of 2024, just about every news release that has happened since November of 2024 has directly impacted the stock market. Not because they're complicit, in my observation, it is because the news changes the way people think about things. When new tech is released, people might buy into it, thinking it's the next big thing. When Tesla lost 14% because Donald Trump stopped supporting the EV tax credit, that wasn't a joke. He cut it off. You are no longer getting $7,500 off of your $55,000 Tesla. And a lot of the times that was the only reason why people were buying a fucking Tesla, was because that $77,500 that went towards the value of the car could reduce the down payment on a car low enough for somebody who otherwise couldn't afford it to be able to afford to get into the car and still have those high $500 and $700 a month payments. That a $50,000 car that's looking for at least 10% down, if not 20% down, a $55,000 car is looking for like $5,500 down at the very least. If you got a $7,500 tax credit, Tesla might, instead of saying, oh, well, you got to give me 10 grand for this car, they might say, well, instead, give me $2,500 for this car, and you can drive away with a $55,000 car, which made it better because Ford and Chevy and everybody else with gas power cars were like, nah, boy, you got to give me 8 grand for this car. Well, if there's a $7,500 tax credit towards this exact same vehicle, you only got to give me $500 for this vehicle, because the cost of getting yourself locked into this deal is not going to change. It's just the government was giving $7,500 towards the deal, which benefits you in the long run. So no, it's not. I'm not going to contribute to the speculations that politics or the news media is manipulating the stock market. But emotional impulse buying is definitely compromising the ability for sound financial decisions. And that's the reason why we're able to put our time into doing smart research, not emotional investing, and be able to make changes in our ability to invest in the future and then benefit from the volatility of everybody else. Because all of the people that are running from the REITs, the war is not going to last forever. And those REITs are going to go back up in value. And those REITs that are giving you 22 to 23, 25% return on investment right now, those REITs, if you buy them now, you're going to be locked into that price for as long as you own those shares. Your main goal is the dividend payout. Your main goal is not the share price. So the share price can run flat for 10 years, but if you're getting 25% return on investment on freaking 100 grand, that's 25 grand that you're getting back where the S&P 500 would have only gave you 10 grand. He says Tesla is a good car, but the tax credit was very important for Tesla. Tesla is okay. You're gonna make me talk trash about Tesla. Okay, so Tesla is an electric vehicle, and the problem with electric vehicles now, Tesla is probably one of the better manufactured electric vehicles. I'm going to start there. However, the power consumption of a Tesla is going to be based on the weight capacity of the individuals that are in the vehicle and the performance styles of the driver. I, at 20 miles to the gallon, 25 or 28 miles to the gallon, can take my 2008 something or other and do 105 or 115 on the interstate and be able to run that for 300 miles. No problem. My gas mileage is locked in on the performance of my vehicle. As long as I do regular tune-ups, I don't have anything to worry about. It doesn't matter how heavy the vehicle is. It doesn't matter if I'm towing something on the back. If that's the kind of mileage I'm getting, that's the kind of mileage I'm getting. But with an electric car, the EPA rating for the electric car is based on one regular sized person driving the car with no luggage, no passengers. So a Tesla with a 300-mile rating is going to be a Tesla that is driven by an average person, something close to 130 to 155 pounds. Now, put a 240-pound person into that Tesla, the mileage is going to be different, probably 275, 280. Then, if you put 4 fat people in that bitch, now that same Tesla rating might go down to 200. Now, take the driver of that Tesla is trying to ride on the interstate at 90 to 100 miles an hour, and it is clocked at 300 miles per charge for the average speed of about 55 miles an hour. If it's doing 40 miles an hour more than that, it's probably not going to do the 200. It's probably only going to do the 100. So now, off of a 300-mile charge, you're only getting 100 miles of performance. And that's if you don't have suitcases and other such stuff on the vehicle that could potentially have you have that 300-mile range give you like 50 to 75 miles. You still have to go somewhere and waste a half hour charging it up, but you might be able to burn 75 miles on a full charge because it is overloaded. Now, the design flaw in that is that you can't push a Tesla to the same limits as a gas powered vehicle because the battery is not going to last as a gas powered vehicle would. So, because an electric vehicle doesn't have as many components that can break down, Tesla does have a type of warranty on it where they send maintenance people to the car to fix the car instead of you bringing it to the shop a lot of the times. Because why bring it to a mechanic shop when the most that you need to do at a mechanic shop is tires, rims, and brakes? Everything else is a portable electrician that can come through and knock the shit out. So they could just send somebody to you, which saves them money on mechanic shops. So that's a plus. But I'm not gonna say, well, Tesla's like a damn good car. No, it's not. Fucking $155,000 for some of these bastards, $55,000 for the cheap ones, which is $20,000 to $30,000 more than the average car, because a $55,000 Model X is way more expensive than a $25,000 Honda Civic or a $30,000 Toyota Camry. Way more expensive, right? And now they're GPS tracking your shit. They're audio monitoring. They're monitoring your vitals, retina displays, all this other stuff. Oh yeah, it personalizes the car so that somebody else can't steal the car. But now you're getting DUIs because your car is ratting you out. You're getting traffic tickets because your car is ratting you out. No, I don't want to deal with that shit. They just said that like 30 something states is issuing tickets for using your cell phone while driving. If Tesla is recording you using your cell phone while driving, you're gonna start getting tickets in the mail because your car is ratting you out. I'm not dealing with that shit. I would prefer to have a 1980s gas guzzler getting 8 to 10 miles to the gallon, and nobody knows what the fuck I'm doing behind the wheel of the car until the car gets crashed. And it's my word against yours if I don't have a dash cam. But my dash cam ain't pointing at me. My dash cam's pointing at the outside of my car because I'm not trying to incriminate myself for no reason. He says, I agree the war is not going to last long because the president finally figured out that he needs to use some brute force to finish the job. He been knew that he had to use brute force to finish the job. But the problem is that he can't use the kind of brute force that he would Hiroshima the situation because he needs the oil below ground. Because really, if he really wanted to put a stop to the situation, it would require him to destroy the oil reserves. He would just bomb the country in ways where the military would not survive. He's not doing that because he wants the oil underground. If you bomb the surface, you damage the oil underground. So he's not doing that. He's there for the money. So he's not going to do what would need to be done to put an end to the wars because he's trying to make sure that he preserves the reason why he's going out there in the first place. Now, that stretches the war out a little bit longer, cause a lot more casualties, but the ends, which is billions of dollars of oil, justify the means, hundreds of thousands of American troops being sacrificed for a billionaire to make a bunch of money. He said, I meant that Tesla's good for an electric car. Yeah, you better clarify because when you said up here Tesla's a good car, I'm like, it's not. It's overpriced. It's overpriced. Now, if Tesla, if Elon Musk made Teslas $5,000 or $10,000 cheaper than a gas power car, then I would say yes. If he went the extra mile and sold the battery packs, even if they were like $1,000 a battery pack, you could buy 5 battery packs for your Tesla for the price of a replacement used car. That would make a lot more sense. And then if they were interchangeable, that would make it even better because you could actually have a charge station at your house that would charge your power supply. You would be driving your power supply, doing what you got to do, come back to the house, disconnect your power supply, and swap the shit out. For those able-bodied individuals that's capable of doing that, that would make perfect sense, and that would eliminate the standby time. Likewise, and I think Kia was the one that had that, where you could just click them in and just add more power, more battery packs to it. Um, if you had that situation where you could add more to the original power supply that Tesla has, where yeah, they've got a 300-mile rating, but you could just add like 5 or 6 more in there, and now you've got like 600-mile rating. If you was trying to take a long distance journey, you can now go 300 to 600 miles, pull over, check into a hotel for the day, take a nap, rest in the pool and stuff, get back on the road, and the car will be fully charged and it would make more sense. But right now, yeah, you can't do long cross country travel with a Tesla. I mean, you could, it's just inconvenient. You're the $1,000 battery test. Yeah, damn right. Because right now they're $5,000 aftermarket if you find them at the right place, sometimes used, and then $10,000 brand new. And $10,000 is a Nissan Versa, like a brand new 2026 Nissan Versa. So why am I going to pay $10,000 to replace a battery pack for a 2016 Tesla when I can pay $10,000 for a 2026 Nissan Versa? When you start talking about opportunity costs, $55,000 for one Tesla and $55,000 for 5 Nissan Versas. I would prefer to have 5 fucking Nissan Versas in my driveway where motherfuckers look at me like, you must love you some Volkswagen. No, I just like having a reliable car sitting in my yard while 2 cars are in the shop. And then if you get them all the same fucking color, VIN number, damn near everything except for the last four, nobody could tell the difference between which car is which car. You could just put one of them on the fucking insurance and leave the rest of them lying in the yard and just put one in the shop and bring one back and move the plates from right to left and nobody be able to tell the difference. But for $55,000, you could have 5 Nissan Versas instead of having one Tesla. So yeah, when you when you say it's a good car, I'm like, I don't know about that. Because the environmental nut jobs almost banned all gasoline cars. That's what we were covering on the show a couple weeks ago. You missed that show. But California was doing that because they're not really environmental nut jobs. People say that when people do stuff that they're crazy because nobody agrees with what they're doing. The people who are doing that are the people that are invested in EV vehicles. So they were going to ban gasoline vehicles because they are invested in the automakers selling electric vehicles at $20,000 to $30,000 per vehicle more than what they're currently selling vehicles. It would also force more gas owners to sell or trade in their gas vehicles for the vehicles that will monitor every person in the vehicle. So it's a two-part process. It's not just about the money. It's about government monitoring because you sign a contract to use the vehicle. You sign a contract to have all of this equipment allowed to be functioning in your vehicle. You accept the terms and conditions of your data in this vehicle to go to the company and a lot of times be sold to someone else. And you don't even know who the someone else is. So when you get into a brand new 2026 or 2027, there's cameras all over the vehicle. You can't even see them all. But what happens is that now they know what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and where you're doing it at 24/7 because you would agree to the terms and conditions. We just covered the topic about the trade-off between your convenience and your privacy. The convenience of having a self-driving vehicle that's automated whenever you want it to be, that's voice activated whenever you tell it to do shit. The convenience of having that nifty sci-fi stuff comes at the convenience of having your car wiretapped 24/7, GPS tracked 24/7, video recorded 24/7, which puts you in a position where your privacy is gone for the sake of convenience. And that's why I warned y'all. I'm like, shit, with the way they're doing what they're doing right now, bro, I'm gonna go buy me something that was made before the 90s. So that I don't have to worry about what they got going on. Uh, so to me, I'm like, well, it makes no sense to go to sacrifice myself and my privacy for the convenience of something that drives itself. But yeah, I was hip to the first idea of, yeah, I want a car that drives itself, especially one that I can make money off of. He says, good point. They invested or their friends invested. You're right. Okay, hold on. It's Matt says how properly caring about the environment makes you a nut job. I do agree that that doesn't really make you a nut job. Caring about you came into that on the back end, so you and I have the same observation on that one. He says the only dumb people are the people against the environment. Okay, so people aren't necessarily against the environment. So I'm going to disagree with your comment on that one. Uh, the people are, might be misinformed as to what's happening with the laws and rules and regulations that are supposed to be attempting to preserve the environment. Because while we never understood global warming, we understand that our seasons have shifted by 90 days. Think about it. Starts getting hot in July. July, August, and September are some of the hottest months out of the year. And that used to be May, June, and July. It shifted by 90 days. Where the peak of summer Used to be July, the peak of summer is now September. It's shifted by 90 days. And we start seeing the coolness in October, November, December, where the fall happens, and that used to be the winter. And now we have like snowfall in January, February, March. That's the spring, but that is now the new winter. The seasons have changed the whole 90 days due to global warming. But people don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis because they don't pay attention to that. Now, people are not against the environment. They are against the laws, rules, policies, and regulations that are made that compromises their ability to function in life. And some of those laws, rules, and regulations actually are designed to benefit the environment. So you got to understand, because we have lived what 200 plus years not giving a shit about the environment. We just feed off the land, industrialize it, maximize it, automate it, make profits off of it. And then people started saying, you know what? We're not going to have a world to live on if we keep doing it like this. We're probably going to have to change the way we do things to extend the life of our planet. So, now you've got some laws that are designed to extend the life of the planet, and you've got some laws that are designed to be convenient for people today. Extending the planet might be inconvenient today, and the benefits of today might not be convenient for the planet in the long run. That's the conflict of interest. It's not people who don't like the environment. I'm not going to say, fuck trees. I'm going to cut down. I probably got 100 trees on my property right now. And I don't want my neighbors to trim the branches on my trees. But I don't want an electric car. So am I environmentalist? Or am I just procuring my own investments and my own assets and my own personal interests? He says, nobody's against the environment, only against the scams. Thank you. I agree with you, Trader. Is humanity is making Earth unlivable for humanity. Okay, yes, that's what industrialization does. It feeds off of the land, and without replenishing. But then hold on. When you say, well, Earth, people on Earth are making the Earth unlivable. Think about this. It takes 20 years of carbon pollution to create a Tesla battery. A Tesla battery gives you probably 10 years worth of battery life for 200,000 miles, depending on how much you use it. So you need 2 Tesla batteries to live a 25-year lifespan for a Tesla car. It takes 20 years of pollution to make 1 Tesla battery. You are not saving the environment by buying a Tesla. You are just polluting the environment today to, if you keep the car for 25 years and not have to change the battery, reduce pollution in 25 years. So if it's a washout where pollute the planet now and then not pollute the planet and have a status symbol, or pollute the planet as you go and not have a status symbol, the difference between the two is absolutely nothing. They have not created a way to not pollute the planet until they start taking like uranium and other such nuclear power systems and putting them into vehicles where the vehicles will never need to be recharged or refueled again. That will save the planet. But it would have an extensive quantity of radiation that humans would have to adapt to. And the government hasn't allowed that. It says the planet used to be much hotter than today in the past few million years. And we also had a few ice ages. Well, it's a lot hotter now than what it was 50 years ago. He said we can adjust to the heat, but not as much as the ice. Well, you're right about that. Okay, he says the air against the environment as they don't change no matter the law, regulations, etc. If humanity weren't against the environment, then they would choose personal to make change. Well, I think that humanity likes convenience and they don't like the responsibility to make convenience. So they will go with the easiest path possible. Yeah, we do choose to industrialize. He said, got nothing to do with Tesla. So you're excusing your damage to your home because of others. Uh, are you saying I'm weak? Or are you saying that my argument is weak? Because no, Tesla. I just gave you a whole scenario where Tesla batteries are polluting the environment, and in order to create them, and the usage of a Tesla is going to save emissions over the lifetime of a vehicle, and the quantity of emissions that are the quantity of carbon pollution to create the vehicle is not offset by the lifespan of the usage of the vehicle. So, oh, okay, humanity is weak. Yeah, humanity is not just weak; it's lazy as fuck, and we're picking and choosing based off of the finished product. The Amish kind of have the best way to do it, but nobody wants to live like the Amish. But when you start talking about pollution and saving the environment and this, that, and the third, an electric car doesn't benefit the environment because the quantity of pollution that it takes to create the battery pollutes the environment before the car is created. And then after the car is created, if it doesn't end up in a crash within the first 3 years of creation, the car might last the 20 years to wash out the difference. Because like I said, 20 years of pollution to create the battery, you must have the car for 20 years in order for it to balance out, and 5 more years in order for you to be a benefit. It's also a financial strain because you're spending an extra $20,000 to $25,000 for the vehicle, sometimes $30,000 for the vehicle, and the money you save on fuel and repairs is going to be offset with 25 years worth of ownership. So if you own a car for 25 years, you get a return on your investment. But if you don't, you spent more money, opportunity cost for that car than what you would have spent for a gas power car that would have done the same thing, just distributed differently. So the observation is that I'm not making an excuse for damaging my home because of others. I am validating and verifying that the human race does not pay attention to the environment, and the human race does not pay attention to what will benefit the environment in 100 years, because a lot of people don't plan on living another 20. Therefore, the human race is going to pay attention to what benefits them today and what might benefit them over the next 5 or 10 years. And anything beyond that, they can get two shits about. That's when they start deciding over convenience. So if saving the planet 200 years from now is the goal, fuck that goal. I want to have comfort over the next 3 to 5 years. That is not an excuse, that is rationalizations. An excuse is saying that I fuck up my life and it's not my fault, it's the president's fault. That's making an excuse. No, I'm not fucking up my life at all. I'm telling you straight up that the reason why and really the oil companies shut down California with the environmental laws, because I mean, if you outlaw gas power cars, California is like the third largest population in America that would not be buying gas powered cars and not be buying gasoline, which is a large majority of the population that would not be paying for oil. And they didn't want that. So they put a stop to it. That ain't got nothing to do with me making an excuse for nobody else. That's just me explaining to you what the hell happened. Trader said the next ice age will probably kill most of the people on the planet. Well, I'm not going to be around when it happens. He says because they excuse it by blaming Tesla laws, etc. No, we don't. It's not an excuse to blame Tesla or blame laws or anything to that effect. Um, and that's not what today's show is about. Today's show is about stashing your money in places and whether or not it benefits you or not. So we're gonna get back to today's show after this comment. Um, the reason why you don't see certain things happen is because of the agenda of certain people who have the most control over the situation. Consumers can spend their money in certain places, but big business decides where the money is allowed to be allocated. Now, for example, Ford, Chevy, Dodge all look the same. That's There's different performance models, different amenities inside of the vehicles, but they pretty much look the same. You're not buying one vehicle because it's better than the other vehicle. They're all the same. But when you buy one for the brand. That's consumer spending. The difference between buying a gas power car versus buying an electric car is going to be the convenience and the status symbol. That's consumer spending. But the laws that allow us to buy an AR-15 without a tax stamp versus the law that allows us to buy a electric vehicle with a tax credit, or the solar panel law that they did away with recently, that you could buy a shit ton of solar panels and they give you tax credits for it. Going solar used to be highly promoted by the government. Now it's not backed by the government as much. People were incentivized to spend money on green energy and renewable energy, and they're no longer being incentivized to do that, which means that I would have done it for the money type of decisions that consumer spending would have been made. Big business would have encouraged that, and now that encouragement isn't there. Now that that encouragement isn't there, people have to buy it because they find value in it, not buy it because they'll turn a profit from it, right? So again, they're not making excuses by blaming the law or blaming Tesla, etc. They are putting their money where their best interests are, and it's just so happened to not be with climate control. They don't benefit today from climate control. Their great grandchildren are not going to benefit from today's decisions, but the people who are spending their money today are not spending their money towards climate control. They're spending their money towards convenience. And that's not an excuse. That is an observation. And it's a rational observation. Okay, this is the last comment. He says, people don't do anything about it personally, and leave it to the government, businesses, etc. Yes, you and everybody else leaves it to the government. And that's the reason why things are the way they are. There's what, 501 people in the government that makes the decisions for 300 something million Americans. And they're supposed to only be there for 2 years, but they're there for 20 and 40 and 60 years. Because you, me, and most of the other people who don't ever run for Congress, you, me, and everybody else here in this country who don't run for senator, who don't run for other levels of Congress, where you see that the only criteria to be the president of the United States is to be over the age of 35, born in America, and lived in America within the last 15 years. That's the only three criteria. So why are there not a million people running for president every election season? Why is there only like 3 to 5? One Republican, one or two Republicans, two Democrats, and then one independent. And then out of the two Democrats, the one with the most votes becomes a Democratic representative. The one with the most votes for Republican becomes a Republican representative. Then you have three. And usually what happens is that along the way, the independent party doesn't have enough funding to continue to trail. And it boils down to just a Republican and a Democrat. So two people every 4 years run for president out of 5. And then the rest of the population, popularity contest. I voted for this guy because I know him. I voted for this guy because I'm a Republican. I voted for this guy because I'm a president. I voted for a woman because I'm a feminist. I voted for that guy because he's black, but never because of the policies. Never because of what they represent and how they planned on and explained to us on how they're going to change this country. So yeah, we don't do anything about it and we leave it to the government. He says, nope, I make change that I can control. I mean, you say that, but if I make change that I can control, like changing the way that I build generational wealth for my family by not investing in things that don't benefit me now, you're going to categorize me and everybody else in this situation because, see, there you go. That gets you blocked. I didn't vote for it because if I would have put up a vote, I would have put up a vote for the $1.3 million that was going to be given to all the slaves. I told y'all that. So the guy that we got that guy because y'all voted for him. I didn't vote for him, but I'm gonna change the way I do business so that I can benefit from him. That's what I told y'all that. But like I told him, it's like, look, at the end of the day, when we make changes in our personal lives and we do the things that we need to do for what we control, we're controlling our own personal standard of living. We're controlling our own personal budgets, and we're not going to waste money on something that costs $30,000 more than something else just to say that we're going to save the environment, because we're not. And when I can't find a logical perspective to go down that route, then I'm not going down that route. All right, I told y'all I was going to get back to the main topic because we're supposed to be staying on the main topic about stashing your money away. And this is the very last comment that I'm going to take about this because we're getting back to the main topic. If you guys want to talk about holding your money at your houses and whether or not you should invest the money or keep it in your house, then we can talk about that. But if you're not going to stay on the topic, then we're going to start seeing a lot of people get blocked today. Sunday is questions and comments for the fans. You can ask me whatever you want about yourselves and anything that you're interested in. It's not about me on Sundays, but today we're supposed to be focusing on your money and your stash. Now you're asking, did I vote for him? No, I didn't. And you're asking me why would I vote for the money to slaves? There aren't any to give it to. Actually, there is. Statistically speaking, that the way the dynamic worked out, anybody that was born before 1965 would be one of the direct descendants that would qualify for the money. And based on that observation, since I know individuals that were born before 1965, I would directly benefit from that particular vote. So, under that observation, I would again be voting on my own best interest as well as the interest of the people around me by making sure that if any event that would have happened, that the people that would benefit from that would also benefit me as well. So I'm not going to make a vote that benefits you. I'm not going to make a vote that's a popularity contest. I'm not going to make a vote that benefits a political party. I'm going to make a vote that directly benefits my household. So if voting for the $1.3 million that was being offered at the time would put that money in my pocket, then that's what I would vote for. The same way if somebody decided to say, well, everybody gets one free electric car if you vote for me. If I wanted an electric car, then I would vote for that person. If they say, oh, well, free housing for everybody. If I wanted a free house, then I would vote for that person. If they say, oh, well, free healthcare, I actually voted for that person when they said free healthcare. That person didn't even make it. So at the end of the day, if I wanted free healthcare, I'm going to vote for free healthcare. The observation is that you put your vote where it benefits you. You don't put your vote towards the popular people. You don't put your vote towards other people's influence on you. You put your vote where it directly impacts you and your household because that's how you benefit from what's happening. Because when these people get into office and they do what they do, that is beyond your control. But if they keep their word and they say that they're going to do certain things that you will benefit from, and they do it when they get into office and you voted them into office and your vote went towards your benefit. But if you're broke, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and claiming to be a diehard Republican, and the Republican Party is passing policies for people who have more money than you have ever seen in your lifetime, then you are voting against yourself because the Democratic Party puts money back into the pockets of the people who live paycheck to paycheck, and the Republican Party keeps money in the generational wealth where they inherited millions of dollars from somebody who died, and they're going to get millions more before they die, where their kids are going to have tens of millions of dollars before they even know what the fuck to do with it. That's where Republican decisions are made. But for those people who want to claim to be Republicans, but they're living paycheck to paycheck, they're going to work every day, they're hard blue-blooded Americans that are working regular jobs like everybody else, less than $100,000 a year jobs, most of them, and they're claiming to be diehard Republicans, but you're living a Democratic lifestyle. And Lord knows when you get to retirement age, you're benefiting from the Democratic decisions because Republican decisions are taking away from Social Security, disability, veterans benefits, all this other shit. Well, they're procuring the veterans benefits, but Social Security, disability, and all those other programs, they're pulling away from those. They're pulling away from TANF projects, SNAP programs, and everything that you would benefit from. People that are low income housing that have children, the child care funding, all of that stuff's being pulled away. And then you're in a position where you need stuff and the government no longer provides that. So you're putting yourself in a compromising position unnecessarily because you want to scream Republican. You can put whatever you want on your voter's registration card, but when you go to vote, vote for the policy that benefits you. Don't vote for the one that says I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. Vote for the one that benefits you. If you need government assistance to sustain your standard of living, vote for the fucking government assistance. It doesn't matter who represents it. Just vote for whatever benefits you. Right? All right, now let's go on to this main topic. So, what if I told you uh, that feeling that you have of safety, the one that we told you about earlier about having a little bit of money stashed away at the house? What if that bunker, the one that you've so carefully built to protect yourself, is actually a financial trap? Because the truth is, a bunker can be a trap. Today, we're going to show you exactly how the walls are poised to collapse. Okay. So we're not talking about some hypothetical scenario. we're talking about three specific relentless forces already closing in, ready to undermine your financial future. We should all know about inflation, but then the one that we very rarely talk about, which is physical disasters, and the one that we just finished debating on for the last hour, the long term arms of the law. Now, this isn't about shaming you for wanting security. This is about revealing the hidden dangers in the very strategies that you're using to get there. So, to see what's at stake, let's talk about two people. We're going to give two examples. We're going to give an example of a guy named Barry and a guy named David. So, a decade ago, both of them had the same goal, which was financial security. Each managed to save up a significant sum, like 50 grand, $50,000, 50 grand, right? And they both were proud about it. And rightly so, because I mean, shit, if you was able to hold on to 50 grand, that's tough. But this is going to be where the stories take a sharp turn. Example number one, Barry. Barry's cautious, deeply mistrustful of the financial system. Took his 50 grand in cash and locked it away in a heavy duty safe in his basement, his money bunker, right? He slept well at night, knowing that his life savings were just a few feet away, untouchable. David, the other example, was just as concerned about the safety, but he channeled that concern differently. He took his $50,000 and, well, he did something that seemed on the surface far riskier than Barry's fortress of cash. Fast forward 10 years, Barry opens a safe, the $50,000 is still there. Every last bill. It looks exactly the same. But Barry is devastatingly poorer. He can't afford the things that he used to. His dream of comfortable retirement has evaporated. His bunker has become his prison. Meanwhile, David, who took that supposed risk, hasn't just prevented his wealth from being taken, preserving it and whatnot. He's grown it into a small fortune. His financial position is going to be stronger than ever. So, what did David know that Barry didn't? Well, what allowed him to thrive while Barry's wealth withered, we want to find out what that was. And the answer is going to be key to dismantling your own financial debt trap and building a fortress that can actually withstand the future. The first and most relentless enemy of your cash bunker isn't a thief who kicks down your door and runs off with all your shit. It's the thief who is already inside, working silently 24/7. And his name is inflation. So, here, the word we're going to hear all the time is inflation, but most of us have become numb to actually what it is. And we think of it as a small number on the news. But for your money in the bunker, inflation is very real. It is a slow corrosion, like acid, that is dissolving the value of every single dollar that you have stored in your vault there. Because your cash is going to earn a return of exactly 0%, not a single penny of interest. It is just sitting there. Meanwhile, the world outside of your bunker is constantly getting more expensive. The price of groceries, gas, healthcare, housing, it's all going up. That's inflation. And because your cash pile isn't growing with that inflation, its ability to buy those things, its purchasing power, is relentlessly shrinking. And what do we mean by that? Well, if you remember back in the day, you used to be able to buy gas with a quarter, fill your tank with a quarter. Now, to fill your tank, it might cost close to $100. Your purchasing power to buy the same quantity of gas has shrunk. You require more money for the same quantity of resources than what you used to back in the day. That's what we identify as inflation. So if you only had 50 grand, and back in the day, 50 grand might have would have lasted you 10 years. Today, 50 grand might not last you 6 months. The money doesn't go as far. So let's put some hard numbers on this. As of May 2026, the annual inflation rate in the United States is about 4.2%. So to illustrate the long-term effects, let's use a conservative long-term average of around 3% a year increase. So if we remember Barry's $50,000 a year, let's see what this silent theft did to the inflation of his money, not even including or calculating taxation. After just 1 year at 3% inflation, his $58,000 can only buy what is about $48,500 worth of money could buy the year before. So we lost about $1,500 of purchasing power within the first year without even spending a dime. After 5 years, that $50,000 is now only worth about $43,130 in real spendable terms. So he's been robbed of nearly $7,000 in 5 years without having spent a dime. After 10 years, the timeline of our story here, Barry's pristine stack of $50,000 bills now has the purchasing power of just $37,200. So he has, over the course of a decade, lost over 25% of his life savings spending power. A quarter of his wealth just gone. He did nothing wrong. He didn't spend a penny, and yet he is profoundly poorer than what he was when he started. Now, what if inflation isn't a gentle 3%? We've seen all the periods where it's much higher, 4%, 5%, even 6%, or more than that in some situations. So let's run the numbers with a more aggressive but entirely realistic high inflation scenario. 6%. After 10 years at 6% inflation, Barry's $50,000 bunker is now worth a horrifying $27,900 in today's dollars. So he lost nearly half of his wealth, where his fortress crumbled from within, and he didn't even see it happen. Every trip to the grocery store feels more stressful. The dream of buying a new car seems impossible. The retirement he planned for is no longer viable. Now, this isn't just a thought experiment. This is the mathematical certainty of hoarding cash. You are guaranteed a loss. And while you are sleeping, while you're at work, the silent thief of inflation is in your bunker, tirelessly stealing from your future self. So you want to think about that money and what it's for. That $50,000 wasn't just paper to look at. It was for down payment on a house, a child's education, medical emergency, secure retirement. 10 years ago, maybe that $50,000 was 20% of the cost of a starter home in a nice neighborhood. Today, after 10 years, the real estate appreciation and monetary inflation looks at that same $50,000 might only be 10% of the cost. He hasn't just lost purchasing power on milk and bread, he lost the ability to reach his major life goal, which is owning his own house. The bunker creates a powerful psychological illusion. You open the safe, you count the bills, and your numbers are the same. Feels permanent, feels secure, but the numbers lie. The only number that matters is what can be bought. And that number is going down every single day. So holding cash is like trying to carry water in a leaky bucket. Now you can stand perfectly still, protecting it from everything, but you'll look down and find the water level is just lower. And you are guaranteed to lose in a game of wealth and preservation. So, inflation is constantly eroding the foundation of your money bunker. That's the passive loss. But there's a second, equally devastating force at play. And this one is about what you're not doing. It's the grand illusion that your cash stash represents zero risk. This is something called opportunity costs. And we've been talking about this on the show for a long time. The opportunity cost is simply the price that you pay for the road not taken. By choosing to lock your money in a 0% return bunker, you're giving up on the chance for that money to be out in the world working for you, growing and building your real wealth. So this isn't just about avoiding losses. It's about missing out on the potential gains over the long term. Now, This is the secret that David knew. He understood that the true financial safety isn't about hiding your money, it's about putting it to work intelligently. So let's go back to David's $50,000. He didn't hide it. He put it into a simple diversified portfolio of investments. Nothing fancy, no high risk bets. But let's imagine his portfolio earns a conservative average return of just 4% a year. Not a lot of money. After 1 year, while Barry's $50,000 was shrinking in value, David's $50,000 had grown to $52,000. After 5 years, it's worth $60,800. And after 10 years, David's initial $50,000 investment has grown to over $74,000. Now, let's compare. After a decade, Barry is left with cash that could only buy $37,200 worth of stuff that could, a decade ago, assuming 3% inflation, David had $74,000 to buy. Same quantity of stuff, same timeline, different quantities of capital to be spent on it. The gap between them isn't just a few $1,000s. It's a life-changing difference of nearly $37,000 in real functional wealth. David has effectively doubled Barry's outcome, where David could buy more stuff, twice as much stuff, as Barry could under the same conditions in the same economy. And the 4% return is incredibly conservative. Historically, diversified portfolios have often done far better. What if David's portfolio averages 7% annual return, which is closer to the long-term average of the stock market? After 10 years, that's $50,000 would have ballooned into nearly $98,500. He would have almost doubled his initial investment, while Barry lost almost a quarter of his wealth in real terms. The chasm between their financial realities is now immense. Now, this phenomenon is what experts call cash drag. It's the dead weight of your non performing money holding your entire financial life back. Your cash bunker isn't a fortress, it's an anchor. It's holding you in place while the tide of economic growth moves on without you. It says the economy that is based on inflating the currency is a kind of a scam that favors the government, but not the average citizen. No, actually, inflation is. So here's the thing: inflation is identified as the difference between how much stuff you could have bought originally and with the same quantity of money. So let's say you could have bought 10 cows in 1976. And for the price of those 10 cows, you can now only buy one cow in 2026. That means that your purchasing power has depreciated 90% because you're only able to buy 10% of the cows that you used to be able to buy with the same amount of money. That's called inflation. It's not inflating currency. The cost of the product is increasing, is inflating, and the quantity of money that you keep to buy things is no longer enough because the cost of things has exceeded the money you're holding. That's inflation, which means that in order for you to quote unquote keep up with inflation, you must increase the money that you're holding to exceed the increase of cost for the things that you buy. That's inflation. It doesn't favor the government. It favors the billionaires. It doesn't favor the average citizen, but the average citizen, what is it? We have 1% of wealthy, 98% of non-wealthy, and out of the 98% of non-wealthy, we have about 76% of Americans, or 73% of Americans, 77% of Americans. That's what it is, because 23% of Americans make above 100,000 a year, and 73% of Americans don't make 100,000 a year. Okay, now Out of that 73% of Americans that don't make $100,000 a year, the majority of them spends every dollar they can on looking wealthy instead of actually being wealthy. So it is not, as you say, a scam that favors the government, because the government is going to get a profit off of your income taxes as well as your purchasing. So if you make money without spending money, you're still going to get taxed by the government. The government doesn't benefit from inflation. Billionaires benefit from inflation. So that's not the same thing. He says, you're making my point. No, I'm definitely not making your point. That flat currency is a scam. Flat. So there isn't a scam with currency. There's a misunderstanding with how currency works or how you can benefit from currency. There is a misunderstanding with currency exchange. Because when you think of certain countries, like say the Philippines, that would love to take your $30,000 a year and make you an ultra rich over there, while places like Japan expects you to have Japan's Seoul over there in South Korea expects you to have like $75,000 a year, even though in certain areas of those countries you can live off of $8,000 a year. I'll be damned if you're living off of $8,000 in America. That's not happening, right? So you have to pay attention to what's going on. The government doesn't benefit. Either the government benefits because it inflates the debt anyway, which is a tax on average citizens. That's not true either, because you got to understand the big business sets the price, and people pay the price. The government is a non-existent entity that represents 500 plus people making decisions, and those 500 plus people are benefited by lobbyist investments, which are billionaires, millionaires, and billionaires that pay people to make decisions on their behalf to create laws. That's not the government. That's big business. That's the wealthy. That's the ultra wealthy. So the government does nothing but create laws and enforce them. Rich people influence the creation of laws or influence the lack of enforcement of laws. That's rich people. That's not government. And the inflation is consumer spending. So poor people contribute to higher prices, because if poor people didn't want to pay that price, big business wouldn't sell it at that price. The more that poor people are willing to pay more money for the same shit, the more that big business can raise the price. So that's not government at all. Government does not benefit from that. Now, the more money you earn on your income, the more taxes you give to the government, that the government benefits from. Because sales tax actually benefits the state, not the government. It's not it's not a government conspiracy. It is poor spending habits of 73% of poor Americans. You got me there. It's a government that caters to big business. No, it is. You're trying to spin it in a way where you're trying to blame the government for it. It is the poor decision making of the financially challenged individuals that waste all their money on looking wealthy. It is the government can create a law that exists right now that says that you cannot sell a cell phone in the United States for more than $799. Yet iPhone and Samsung both have cell phones that are priced at $1,600. The people who are willing to buy that phone for $1,600 plus taxes up front are the reason why the phones are priced so high. The people who aren't willing to pay that price will get into a no contract guarantee installment plan with their insurance, their phone company, put down the $600 that they're supposed to pay for the damn phone, and then their installment plan will pay the $35 a month for the phone for the next 2 years to guarantee that you're not going to change providers as long as you hold this phone, because consumer spending is what causes the inflation of the phone. Greed is what causes the inflation of the phone, not the government. The government's got nothing to do with that, because the government made limits. Big business found a way around it and consumer spending took advantage of that. I don't have $1,600, but if you're going to give me a $35 a month credit on the rest of the bill, I'll pay $600 guaranteed for what I'm supposed to pay $600 for. And then you can credit my account for the other $1,000 for the next 2 years. And you're guaranteeing that I'm going to stay with you as a customer as a result. No mandatory contract, but I'm indirectly locked into a contract because you're only going to pay that money if I stay with you for 2 years. That's not, the government didn't do that though. The business did that. No, sir. Both things cannot be true at the same time. You're splitting hairs by trying to make both things be true at the same time. Because I just gave you the exact example where the government set limits to prevent consumers from being manipulated. And then the business just changed the way things happen. And then consumers aided business to take the money from the consumer. The government put a limit. Business said, well, if they're willing to pay for it, let's change the way we do things. And then consumers said, yeah, I'll take that. But if every consumer says, well, I know that the law exists, there's a federal law exists right now that says that you cannot sell me that phone for $7.99, for more than $7.99 plus taxes, which would likely be less than $850 for the phone. You price it at $1,600. I'm not buying it for more than $800, and I'm buying it cash up front. No contract, no credits, no nothing to that effect. I'm buying it cash up front. And I shouldn't have to attach it to my plan because I'm buying a product. I'm not buying your service. I'm just buying the device. You know what? They're going to tell you they're not going to sell you the phone. And the government's got nothing to do with that. Because I see your point, but the politicians elected by big business manipulate the economy through interest rates that mostly benefit big and small businesses. Again, no. The interest rates are raised and dropped in order to stimulate the economy. But unfortunately, the stimulation of economy is from the bottom up because poor people spend money, rich people don't. So they reduce interest rates in order to reduce the cost of things, in order for more people to spend money. And the more people that spends money, the more that increases the demand. And when it increases the demand, the cost of the supply goes up, and that's inflation. When they increase interest rates, that makes it harder for people to spend money. The less people that spends money, that increases the supply, reduces the demand, and reduces the cost of the products, which isn't good for the economy because nobody's spending any money. Because the billionaires aren't spending money. That's why they're billionaires. Poor people are spending money. So again, the politicians are not electing big business, or politicians are not elected by the big business in order to manipulate the economy for their benefit in a way where interest rates are going to defaultly put money into the rich's pockets. It's poor spending habits from poor people that puts money into the pockets of the rich. Because take what happened right now. Big business put Donald Trump in there, and Donald Trump did not allow the automakers to prohibit the average American from working on their own car. By default, that just dismantled your argument. He was put there by billionaires. He was gotten off of like 35 or 37 felony charges, put into the White House, and he still did not agree with them on something that would have negatively impacted the bottom 50% of the economy. That's not how this works. Poor spending habits of Americans is what contributes to inflation. Poor spending habits of Americans is what's stimulated by the interest rates. That's what happens. All right. The feeling of zero risk is going to be a myth that is very dangerous for you guys to consider. So if you think that you're avoiding the volatility of the stock market, but you're actually embracing the mathematical certainties of loss, it is a guaranteed financial loss that is masquerading as safety. You're trading the possibility of short-term market dips for the certainty of long-term wealth erosion. And this is going to be the power of compounding. So when your money earns a return, that return then starts earning its own return, and it's going to snowball in an effect that in the beginning, the chances are going to be small, but over 5 or 10 years, that is certainly, especially in 20 years, the kind of effect that'll be astronomical for you. He says, I agree with you, but why did the Feds keep interest rates close to zero for a decade and created this asset bubble? Well, I said it already. The Federal Reserve modifies interest rates to stimulate the economy. During a recession, way back when, things like taxing the rich 50% and zero interest rates or 0% interest or very little interest were things that were done to put money back into not only the local government, but also the economy so that things could start being bought and sold again. Because if people don't sell stuff, people don't buy stuff. And if people don't buy stuff, people don't have jobs. And if people don't have jobs, people don't have money to buy stuff. It's a vicious circle. So what happens is that they do something by either taking money from the rich to give to the poor so that the poor can spend the money and give it back to the rich, or they change things that puts more money into the pockets of the poor so that the poor can spend the money and give it to the rich. Either way, the money stops with the rich because the rich don't spend unnecessary money. The bubble happens because just like with the Bitcoin situation, greed. Somebody will buy and then they'll see the benefit of buying and they'll double down and they'll see the benefit of that and they'll double down. But what goes up must come down. You buy 500 houses and you're holding all these houses thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to make a killing on these houses. Then all of a sudden, less people want your freaking houses or less people can afford them because the interest rates change. Now you got all these houses that you bought thinking that you were going to get a couple $100,000 on top of what you paid for each one of those houses. But now you're selling each one of those houses for half the cost just to get rid of them because the holding cost is costing you too much money. That's when the bubble bursts. Now, all of these questions, trader, have absolutely nothing to do with holding your money in your house. I just really want to point that out. I know you're a long-standing fan, so I'm entertaining your questions, but it is completely off topic from holding your money at your house versus investing it. Right? He says, since the 70% of economy is a consumer spending, I guess the government has no choice. You might be right about that. No, I'm telling you, because, and it's not just 70% is consumer spending, it's about 73% of consumer spending. Because it's everybody that doesn't make $100,000 a year that's wasting their money on Bentleys, Rolls Royce, expensive cars, name brand shoes, name brand clothes, name brand colognes. You got people trying to pretend like they're the rap industry's idols. So everybody's buying Chanel because the girl with the nice butt shaking her behind with the water is talking about buy Chanel. So now everybody's gonna buy Chanel. Back in the day, everybody was buying Patron because Lil Jon and the East Side Boys was drinking Patron on the stage. Everybody was rolling big ass fat Cuban blunts because Rick Ross and Snoop Dogg was smoking weed all day. The fact is that the visual observation of what the rich lifestyle looks like is what poor people aspire to. So they spend more money to live poor, but they ultimately do it with the intent to look rich. I'm not mad at you. I'm just letting you know that we were supposed to be talking about something else. But the fact is that the government doesn't do anything about that. They do put some regulatory restrictions up there, but unfortunately, for the most part, those regulatory restrictions doesn't change the fact that if you're willing to pay for it, there's no law that says that you can't buy it outside of illegal drugs. That's like the only thing that you can't do. Illegal drugs and weapons, those are the things that you can't buy. But if it's not an item that you're not legally allowed to have, if it's not that, then at the end of the day, for the most part, if you're willing to pay $19 for cloud service from Google because Google has overwhelmed your 2 gig or 12 gig email system, if you're willing to pay for shit that you don't need, the government's not going to say, "Oh no, Google, you can't sell them that." No, sell it to them. They'll pay for it. But why pay for 2 terabytes of storage space when you can just go into your emails and delete stuff that you never look at? You're not storing memories in your email. You're not storing important documents in your email. You're just collecting messages that you don't read. And because you can no longer collect messages that you don't read, you're now going to pay for 2 terabytes worth of data space so that you can collect more messages that you don't read. If you're willing to spend the money, they'll sell it to you. We can't blame the government. That's a form of capitalism. We can blame our culture, which is us, first person accountability, because we create the culture that we're in. But we can't blame the government, which is like 500 people that makes decisions on laws for the extra 300 something million people to abide by. That is a poor decision making of 300 something million Americans. That's the reason why the economy sucks. It's not the 500 Americans that are making laws. It's the 300 something Americans that are fucking up their money. That's the reason why the economy sucks. So let's say, and look at that. I got another contract coming in that going to have to deal with. So let's say that a 30-year-old individual puts like $20,000 into a cash bunker. And a friend puts the same $20,000 into a growth oriented investment portfolio. And then they both forget about it for an extended period of time. Say they're in their 60s, right? The person with the cash bunker opens it up to find $20,000. But after 30 years, even with modest inflation, that $20,000 is going to have the same purchasing power of like $8,000. For 3 decades prior, that's the it's a pittance, right? Now, the friend with the investment earning average of 7% a year now has over $152,000 of purchasing power. It's not even a comparable outcome because one chose the illusion of safety and guaranteed themselves a future of financial struggle. The other embraced a calculated, intelligent form of risk and built a foundation for comfort for their retirement. Now, we understand that $100,000 is not going to get you 20 years worth of living. And we also understand that if you put 30 grand in a safe in your house, while that would lose purchasing power over time, that 30 grand of quote unquote emergency money would not be the only thing you would have if you put the rest of your money in investment portfolios and built growth over time. You would be able to benefit from the difference between the two while accepting opportunity cost loss on the money in the safe at the house while gaining value on the money that you put to work for you. So we understand that. But just exclusively taking your money and stashing it away for the sake of the future, you would have to work for more principal and hoard more of that principal in order to build a life that would be provided by that principal versus taking the principal and putting it somewhere else where the principal starts making money without you having to do any work. That's what we're talking about today. So your cash money wouldn't be protecting the cash bunker wouldn't be protecting your money in this observation. It's imprisoning it. It's preventing it from participating in the single greatest wealth creation engine in history, which is compound growth. So every day that your money is sitting idle is a day that it is not working for you. It's a lost opportunity that you can never get back. And we've talked about the slow, silent dangers of inflation and the opportunity cost. So now let's quickly talk about, because I'm at the end of this show early. So let's talk about something far more sudden and catastrophic. Let's talk about the physical destruction of your money bunker. Let's talk about that. If you built the bunker to be a fortress against disaster, but what happens when the disaster happens to the fortress itself? You imagine an economic collapse, but fail to plan for a burst pipe. You worry about the stock market crash, but don't consider a simple house fire. This is the second trapdoor. The assumption that physical possession equals physical safety. It doesn't. In fact, it exposes you to an incredibly high level of risk because, unlike money in the bank, your hidden cash is effectively uninsured. So you might think, but I have homeowners insurance and my money is in a top of the line fireproof safe. Let's dismantle both of those because they're dangerously flawed arguments. First, your homeowner's insurance. Go pull out your policy. Look for the section on personal property, and then find the special limits of liability section. Now, you're going to be shocked that most standard homeowners insurance policies have a strict limit on how much that they'll reimburse for lost or stolen cash. That limit is often just a few $100s, sometimes as low as $200. And let that sink in for a second. But if your house burns to the ground and your life savings of $50,000 goes up in smoke with it, and your insurance company might send you a check for 200 bucks, the rest of that money is just gone. You paid them thousands of dollars a year to protect your assets, but the one asset that you thought was the safest has virtually zero coverage. So picture it: faulty wire in the attic, sparks in the middle of the night, fire rips through your home, you and your family get out safely, which is all that matters to you at the moment. But in the weeks that follow, you face a devastating reality. Insurance will help rebuild the house some of the times, or replace, or not replace, but pay off the remaining balance of the house. Those are the two options. They don't do both. Then they replace the furniture. That's it. But the $75,000 that you painstakingly saved and hidden in a closet, that's ash. The insurance adjuster politely informs you the $200 limit for your cash, and no matter how much you debate with them, they're going to keep repeating themselves. So your entire financial foundation erased by a single accident. But the safe, it's fireproof, right? Is it really? Most consumer grade safes are fire resistant, not truly fireproof. They are rated to withstand a certain temperature for a certain amount of time. So say 17,000 degrees or 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. Bad house fire can burn hotter and longer than that. So what's more, these safes offer almost no protection against water damage. They're fireproof, drill resistant, bullet resistant, sludge hammer resistant, but they're not waterproof, right? Most of them don't tell you they're waterproof, right? So a flood, like a burst pipe or even the water from the firefighter hose, can seep into the safe and turn your life savings into a moldy, useless pulp. And while the Bureau of Engraving and Printing has a process for redeeming mutilated currency, it is notoriously slow, and there's no guarantee that you'll get the full value back because there's going to be a cost to the service. And the risks aren't just fire and flood. What about theft? Burglars who find a safe, especially if they know exactly where the most valuable items are in your house, many residents have a safe that can be pried open or simply carried away, even if you can't pry it open, and eventually they break into it. So your bunker, designed to keep people out, has just become a flashing neon sign pointed to your most vulnerable assets. And this is one of the funniest things because people think, oh, well, nobody knows that I have a safe. Guess who knows you've got the safe? The person who sold it to you, the person who delivered it to you, the person who helped you install it, and any maintenance person that has had to do work near the safe knows the safe is in there. Your family knows the safe is in there. Any of your friends that you bragged about, where you say, oh, I got a vault in my house, they know that it's in there. And word gets around. So if somebody else hears from somebody else that you've got a vault with gold in your house, oh yeah, they're gonna know. If you've got a vault with gold in your basement, oh yeah, they're gonna know because you're gonna tell somebody who's gonna tell somebody who's gonna tell somebody who wants that gold out of your basement. So now they're gonna break into your house just to get the gold out of your basement. You're wondering, oh, why am I targeted for a crime? I didn't do anything, blah, 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 blah. The economy, the government. No, you bragged to the wrong person who snitched to the wrong person who ultimately decided that they wanted what you had. And there's an even more tragic physical risk, which is memory, because people, especially as they get older, hide cash in clever places that nobody remembers. And the lining of an old coat, a hollowed out book taped under a drawer, and years will pass, your memory will fade, and the brilliant hiding spot is completely forgotten. Or even worse, the person dies suddenly without ever telling anyone where the money is. So the financial counselors tell devastating stories of families who know their parents hid money but have no idea where it is, and they're left with a terrible choice: respect their loved one's home or tear it apart in desperate hunt for a treasure that may or may not even be there. And it's a lifetime of savings that can be unknowingly thrown away in a mattress, hauled to a dump, or left to rot inside of the walls of a house, sold to a new family where they find out about it when they do renovations. The illusion is that you have control. The reality is that you've created a single point of failure, and your entire net worth is going to be tied to the physical integrity of one small spot and the single thread of your own memory. That's the definition of fragile, not secure. So, if you're starting to see the cracks forming in your own money bunker, then this is the next part that's supposed to be for you. We're about to uncover the single most overlooked and legally explosive reason why you want to learn how to build real, lasting financial security that protects from these dangers. So, do me a favor, hit the subscription button, like if you haven't done so already, mash those reaction buttons while you're here, because you won't want to miss what we're about to get into over the next 20 minutes. He says, the best story is the guy who forgot the password to his old crypto wallet worth $400 million. What about what about the dude who created crypto and had like $800 billion and he couldn't even prove who he was to get the passcode to get the $800 billion, and he sued two countries to get the information. Mm-hmm. Trying to told you. So this is going to be the trap that nobody talks about, but it's by far the most insidious. It's going to be the legal time bomb that you've armed and placed in the center of your financial life. You think that your cash bunker makes you invisible, that it puts you off the grid. The truth is that it does the exact opposite. It paints a giant red target on your back for banks, lawyers, and even IRS agents. This is the trap that has three jaws that nobody pays attention to. So let's break them down. First, there is the reentry problem. For years, you've been hoarding cash. You've now got a significant sum, let's say $100,000. Now you want to finally use it. You want to buy a house, a car, or make a large investment. You need to get the cash back into the financial systems. And this is where your problems start, because you can't just walk into a bank and deposit $100,000 in cash without setting off every alarm bell in the building. Under the Bank Security Act, banks are legally required to report any cash transaction over $10,000. And in California, that number has reduced to $200. And I think in Texas, it's also $200 now. So the federal government uh, uh, will receive, the bank's going to file a currency transaction report, CTR. Knowing this, you might think, I'll be smart. I'll just deposit $9,500 at a time over a few weeks. Well, congratulations. You've just committed a federal crime called structuring. Intentionally breaking up large transactions to avoid that $10,000 reporting threshold is illegal, even if the money itself is perfectly legal. Banks are trained to spot this, and they'll file a suspicious activity report, or SAR. A SAR is much more serious than a CTR. It means the bank actively suspects you of illicit activity, like money laundering or tax evasion, and it can lead to your accounts being frozen and a full blown federal investigation. So you're trapped. You can't deposit it all at once without scrutiny, and you can't deposit it in pieces without committing a crime. Your safe money is now practically unusable for any major purchases. And then we have the other observation that a lot of places find that you can't do, like buy a car or buy a house or whatever the case may be, cash up front, because that's typically done with drug money by reputation. So they prefer only taking debit or credit. Some places take crypto, checks, money orders, or cashier checks. Never cash. Cash is for small purchases like groceries, furniture, stuff like that. But 10, 15, 20 grand worth of stuff, you got to start talking about it. I covered it on the show. They just passed some new laws, some new banking laws over the past 3 weeks where you can't buy a house cash up front without them finding out the original owner of the house, even if you buy it through a trust or business or something like that. They have to find a human entity that is a direct beneficiary of the purchase. And any cash transactions in California and Texas, because of the high money laundering situation, has a CTR report. It's $10,000 everywhere else, but in California and in Texas, uh, those are places where the CTR report has been reduced to $200 for transactions. So if you deposit $200 into your bank account or withdraw $200 from your bank account, a CTR report goes to the United States government, which just says, hey, FX Trader took money from their account or added money to their account. When money goes from one person to the next, where say FX Trader gives money to Michael and Michael gives money to Steven, if you give $200 to Michael and then Michael gives $200 to Steven, two CTR reports go out. And according to the IRS, likely FX Trader gave Steven $200 through Michael. That's how that works. They follow the money, right? This is a thing to crack down on fraud and money laundering and tax evasion and stuff. And it is laws it's because these crimes are happening more effectively in places like California and Texas. So California, Texas is starting to see that $200 CTR. You don't know that the CTR report happens. They do it because that's what they're supposed to do. But a CTR report, they're not going to call you up and say, hey, trader, I just did a CTR report because you just bought $200 worth of groceries at Walmart. No, it just happens that you made a $200 purchase. You made a $200 cash transaction, CTR report. You buy a $1,000 car, CTR report. You buy a $5,000 stereo system, CTR report. They just want to know what you're spending your money on. Now, the second jaw to trap is going to be the tax man, because for the IRS, a large stash of unexplained cash is the number one red flag for tax evasion. And there's power to penalize you in staggering levels. Because if the IRS investigates and decides that your cash represents underreported or unreported incomes, you're on the hook for all the back taxes for that money. But that's just a start. They'll add penalties for failure to pay and failure to file. They'll add interest, which compounds daily. Then comes to the big one, the civil fraud penalty. And this, it's 10 or 20% in addition to. So the civil fraud penalty could easily be a staggering 75% of the unpaid tax. So imagine you underpaid your taxes by 40 grand over several years by taking cash payments. The IRS could assess you that $40,000 plus interest, plus a civil fraud penalty of $30,000. Suddenly you owe more money than you even saved. So if the amount is large enough, it can cross into a criminal matter. Willful tax evasion is a felony. You've seen Lil' Kim went to jail for that. Carrying penalties of up to 5 years in federal prison and fines of up to $100,000. The third jaw of the legal trap is a divorce disaster. In a legal proceeding like a divorce, you have a legal duty to fully and honestly disclose all of your assets. Hiding a cash stash in a direct is going to be a direct violation of that duty. It's considered fraud upon the court. And the consequences are going to be brutal. If your spouse's attorney discovers that you have a hidden bunker, and they are very good at finding these things, the judge's reaction will be severe. At a minimum, the court will likely award the entire hidden asset to your spouse. You attempted to hide 50% of it, has resulted in you losing 100% of it. The judge may also order you to pay your spouse's legal fees, and in some cases, canceling assets can even lead to criminal charges of perjury. By creating a secret money bunker, you haven't made yourself independent. You've handed your spouse a financial weapon to use against you in court. The act of hiding the money has made it toxic. Its usability, it's a magnet for investigation. It's a liability in any legal dispute. You just can't do whatever you wanted to do with it. And after hearing all of this, inflation, disaster, and legal time bombs, it's easy to dismiss anyone who keeps a cash bunker as foolish. But that's not the whole story. It's important to understand why people do this. The decision to hoard cash doesn't come from a place of stupidity. It comes from a place of deep and often justified fear, because many people have lived through and heard firsthand stories of genuine financial crises. They remember bank failures or times when the system seemed on the verge of collapse. For them, the tangible feeling of cash is a rational response to a perceived risk from institutions that they just don't trust. And for others, it's about control and privacy in a world that feels increasingly intrusive. We just finished talking 2 hours ago about how they're monitoring your behavior inside of your car. Increasingly intrusive, right? So having a part of your wealth that is truly offline can feel like an act of financial self-defense. In some households, a secret stash can be a painful necessity. It can be an escape fund for someone in a controlling or abusive relationship. It can represent a lifeline. The secrecy isn't about hiding from the government, it's about personal safety. So we have to validate these fears. It's understandable. You want control, you want something tangible in an uncertain world. The desire for a safety net, that is not the problem. The problem is that the money bunker is a failed safety net. It's a tool that is fundamentally broken. So the solution isn't to dismiss the fears, but to find a better, smarter way to address them. It's going to be about building the financial fortress that is diversified, insured, and resilient, one that protects you from real danger without forcing you to accept the guaranteed losses of the cash bunker. So we're going to pivot from the problem to some solutions. And I'm going to try to get through most of these in the next 5 minutes. So, how do we dismantle the death trap and build true financial fortresses? It's not going to be about abandoning the idea of a safety net. It's about upgrading it for the 21st century. The modern fortress has two key parts: smart emergency funds and a powerful growth engine. So, let's redefine an emergency fund. This is going to be where we address the valid need for acceptable cash. There's absolutely a place for small amounts of physical cash. Advisors often agree that having a few $100s, maybe up to 1,000 or so, is a pragmatic choice for short-term grid down emergencies like a natural disaster that knocks out the power grid and ATMs for a few days. So, $3,000 to $5,000 in a safe at your house, not that big of an issue, especially if you remember like Louisiana back in 2005. And that's a long time ago because we're in 2026. So that's like 21 years ago, had no power for 4 months. People still had to buy groceries. People still had to buy gas. People still had to pay their bills. Whatever bills that were payable, because they had no power, no feasible running water, and no functioning gas for several months. But the principle is that they had to buy food, they had to buy transportation to get to and from work, they had to pay for their car insurance bills, they had to pay for things, and they didn't have ATM machines and banks to do anything with. They had to use the cash on hand. So if they were spending $2,000 or $1,500 a month, having that cash on hand helps stimulate the house for the 3 months that there was no power, right? So it makes sense to have some cash accessible in a vault in your house for situations like that. But even this stash is going to need to be managed intelligently. You want to store it securely. make sure at least one other trusted person knows where it is. And it's going to be, it can't be your homeboy from childhood. It has to be somebody else that benefits from direct access to the money. That's who it is. I understand. Tell your wife, tell your youngest, smartest child, whatever, somebody who is not going to take advantage of the knowledge and steal the money, which you got to try to find a trusted person. But you want to treat this as part of your overall financial plan, not as a secret hidden location from everybody else. Now, this is going to be a small cash pile, not your primary emergency fund, because your real emergency fund is going to be one that covers 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses that should be much larger and stored somewhere much smarter. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you, let's just throw it into high yield savings accounts, which is a good way to go, right? Not under your mattress. A high yield savings account is going to be a perfect modern replacement for a cash bunker because it is insured. It's FDIC insured up to $250,000. So unlike your cash at home that has next to no insurance coverage, a high interest savings account is protected by the federal government. So if they get robbed, your money's still accessible. It's liquid. If you have ATM machines, you can access your money quickly and use it within a day or two. And it's going to be there when you need it for a real emergency. It does fight a little bit of inflation. And this is going to be crucial because as of mid 2026, many high yield savings accounts, high interest savings accounts are offering interest rates of between 3 and 4%. And this means that your emergency funds is just sitting there losing value if you have it at the house. But in these high interest savings accounts, it is increasing with inflation. So it's earning interest, actively working to offset the corrosive effects of inflation that are destroying the cash values that would otherwise be in your bunker. Now, while this is going to be the first pillar of your new fortress because a small amount of physical cash is in your house, immediately accessible if there's no power, you have 3 to 6 months of emergency funds in your insured high interest savings account. We also have the observation, which is another thing that people don't think about, is advance paying basic utility bills. So you have flat rates for your lights, water, gas bill, car insurance, phone bill, cable bill, internet service. You have flat rates for these observations. If you paid that in advance, I know people are going to say, oh, well, you're giving somebody else your money and they're going to turn it into something else. But you're guaranteeing service. If you bought 6 months worth of service from your phone company, if you bought 6 months worth of service from your light bill company, you're guaranteed 6 months worth of service. If you bought 3 years worth of service, you're guaranteed 3 years worth of service. If you lose your job, you're guaranteed 3 years worth of service. You got 3 years to get you another job. The difference between putting it in a bank account with inflation and taxation on the 4% interest versus giving it to the utility bill that you're going to give it to anyway is that you no longer have to worry about that bill. Your car insurance is paid up for the whole 6 month policy or the whole year. You can look back and say, I don't owe anybody anything until August of 2027. So all I need to do is pay for groceries and put gas in my vehicle. That's a level of security that not too many people have. He says the boxes at the bank can be raided as well by the authorities. So there's no safe place. You might get it back in a few months. You're talking about a safety deposit box. We're talking about putting your money in the bank so if the vault gets robbed, where they robbed the bank like Bonnie and Clyde, your money is still accessible to you eventually because the monetary value that you have digitally stored in your account is not stolen, just the money in the vault. So the bank got robbed, you didn't get robbed. But if you have a safety deposit box at the bank and they robbed the safety deposit box, the bank got damaged and you got robbed. But your safety deposit box being knocked off at the bank is the same as your vault at your house being knocked off at your house. Either way, you lost out. And depending on what insurance coverages you have for that vault or that box, that's going to determine whether or not your stuff gets replaced or not. But the premium that you pay for the insurance policy may not offset the value of the stuff that's in the box where you lost that money opportunity cost. right, we got a couple more minutes. Actually, what we're gonna do, we're gonna pause. And what I'm gonna do, because I got a contract that I gotta fulfill in the next 4 minutes, and we're gonna wrap things up here. And this is unexpected because I just got the notification that I got somebody from Asia that wants me to knock something out with them right now. So what we had next was supposed to be the growth engine, and we already know that if you diversify your money into a portfolio, uh, and I've got those into the membership that would benefit you guys. So I've already put this in the membership for a walkthrough so that you guys would have building yourself a diversified portfolio would aid you in your ability to gain wealth after you have your emergency fund. So um, beyond that, what I'm going to do is if there's any information about this that I did not get a chance to cover today, I will cover it tomorrow, so that we have the ability to make sure that everybody has everything that they need. However, anybody who wants all of the information that I had accessible to you today, make sure that you go and double check the membership, because this show and all of the other stuff that we have collected has been getting released in the membership before the show aired. So you can actually go and get the walkthrough on what to do about this in the membership. So, since I'm a little bit pressed for time, I'm going to wrap it up short today. I'm going to thank you guys. First, I'm going to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And then, special shout out to FX Trader, Michael Steven, OG Kicks, and Unc Andy. And then I'm going to say thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground.